Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Williams, and I serve as the president of the Washington County Board of Education. I would like to welcome the members of the Board of Education, the superintendent, staff, and the community to the Board of Education's public business meeting. Everyone is participating in this meeting using a telephone or an electronic device. By way of background, it has always been the practice of the Washington County Board of Education to meet in person and to invite members of the public to the board's meetings. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, certain legal directives and the need to safeguard the health of the community, it is necessary to participate in this public meeting by phone or electronic device. This evening's business meeting will be recorded and the public may access the public meeting now on Channel 99, Facebook, and on WCPS's website at school-board/board/meetings. Let me do that again. wcpsmd.com/school-board/board-meetings. The public comment portion of tonight's meeting will not take place. The Board of Education encourages the public to submit their comments in writing to boe@wcps.k12.md.us, and this information will be distributed to board members and the superintendent. At this time, I will call to order the public business meeting of the Washington County Board of Education. Dr. Bishop, would you please call the roll so that we may determine if we have a quorum of board members present?
Mr. Bickford,
Here.
Mrs. Fisher,
Here.
Mr. Guestford,
Present.
Mrs. Murray,
Present.
Mr. Ridenhour, Mr. Ridenhour, Mr. Scouser,
Here.
Mrs. Williams.
Present. I count 6 members present. We do have a quorum, so we'll proceed with the meeting. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. This evening, we have a 5th grade student from Salem Avenue Elementary School, William Rexroad, who will help us begin our meeting by citing the Pledge of Allegiance. William, would you like to begin, please?
I pledge all of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, William. You did a fine job. I do appreciate you helping us begin our meeting this evening. Mr. and Mrs. Rexroad, thank you so much for bringing William.
Thank you very much for having William.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll have approval of this evening's agenda.
Mr. Stout, so moved.
I'm sorry, would you like to try that again?
This is Mr. Stauffer, so move.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Fisher, second.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher, for your second. Is there any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. Dr. Bishop, will you please call the roll for the vote?
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Guestford,
Aye.
Mrs. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Ridenhour, Mr. Stauffer,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bickford,
Aye.
and Mr. Mackley.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I have 6 affirmative votes with the student member concurring. So we do have an approved agenda. At this time, we'll have approval of the minutes.
Mrs. Williams, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, April 21st, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Guestford. Is there a second?
This is Mrs. Murray. I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Do we have any additions or corrections to that set of minutes? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. Dr. Bishop, will you please call the roll for the vote?
Mr. Guestford,
Aye.
Mrs. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Stauffer,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bickford,
Aye.
and Mrs. Fisher.
Aye.
Thank you. We have 6 affirmative votes. So the minutes of the closed meeting of April 21st have been approved. Mr. Guestford, do you have another motion, please?
Yes, the second and final motion is for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, April 21st, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Guestford. Is there a second?
This is Mrs. Murray. I second.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Do we have any additions or corrections to the business meeting minutes of April 21st? Hearing none, we'll move to the vote. Dr. Bishop, will you please call the roll for the vote?
Mrs. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Ridenhour, Mr. Stauffer,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bickford,
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Guestford,
Aye.
Mr. Mackley.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I have 6 affirmative votes, the student member concurring, so our business meeting minutes of April 21st have been approved. It's at this time that we usually have public comment, but again, public comment will not take place this evening. However, the Board of Education encourages the public to submit their comments in writing to our email, boe@wcps.k12.md.us. Moving on to old business. We have one item of old business this evening, and that's consideration of the second reading of proposed changes to policy GBA diversity. Mr. Trotta.
Thank you. Good evening. The Board of Education approved the first reading of the proposed changes to policy GBA at its public business meeting on April 21st, 2020. A notice seeking comments on the proposed changes was placed on board docs and on the school system's website following that first reading. We have not received any comments concerning the proposed changes to policy GBA. The Policy Committee is requesting the Board of Education to approve the second reading of this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta. Do we have a motion?
Madam President, Mrs. Fisher moves to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy GBA entitled Diversity.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. Is there a second?
Second by Mike Gessler.
Thank you, Mr. Gesford. We'll move to
Did we lose Mrs. Williams? This is Peter.
Yes, Peter, I think we have.
Okay.
It shows her mic is muted.
Oh, there she is. Should be back on, Melissa.
Am I on now?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry. What was the last thing that you heard?
We moved to the roll call.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bishop, will you proceed with the roll call, please?
Mr. Ridenhour, Mr. Stauffer,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bickford,
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Gesford,
Aye.
Mrs. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Mackley.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I have 6 affirmative votes and the student member concurring. So we have an approved change to policy GBA diversity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Trotta.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to new business. Our first item of new business is the consent agenda. Mr. Bakewell, Supervisor of Purchasing, is presenting.
Hi, good evening, President Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. Tonight I have 11 items for your review. The Purchasing Review Committee has reviewed these items and they are being recommended for approval. And staff is available if you have any additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bakewell. Is there a motion?
Madam President, this is Mr. Bickford. I move to approve the awards, renewals, and procurements for group dental renewal to United Concordia with administrative fees of approximately $132,000 and claims fees of approximately $2,100,000. Building automation, energy management, and automated temperature control annual maintenance extension to Control Systems, Inc. at a cost of $228,500. Wired networking equipment and components to Skyline Technology Solutions at a cost of $177,869. Comprehensive Food Safety and Cleaning Program renewal to Food Safety Solutions at a cost of $205.50 per school per month. Uniforms for Food and Nutrition Services and Transportation renewal to BJ's Custom Creations and Super Shoes at the unit prices listed. Portable and modular buildings to Vanguard Modular Building Systems, LLC at an approximate cost of $600,000. Williamsport High School water main replacement to Harbell, Inc. at a cost of $134,904. Gold Book Pathways and Toolkit renewal to Enome, Inc. at a cost of $291,640. Blackboard subscription renewal to Blackboard, Inc. at a cost of $79,623.20. Pre-K home libraries to Scholastic at a cost of $75,000, and custodial equipment to S. Friedman and Sons at a cost of $61,524.50.
Thank you for your motion, Mr. Bickford. Is there a second?
Mrs. Murray seconds.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Is there any discussion or any questions for Mr. Bakedall?
This is
This is
Mr.
Mr.
Stauffer.
Okay, go ahead, Stauffer.
First of all, I just want to say that the pre-K home libraries, that's very important in promoting literacy, and I'm glad to see that, very proud to vote in favor of that. And I'm also glad to see that we're maintaining our older schools. Williamsport High School, where I spent a great many decades, is 50 years old this year. And if we can't build new schools, we got to maintain the old ones. So glad to see the water lines there being taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Is there anyone else?
This is Mr. Bickford. I also wanted to echo my appreciation that we are continuing the program to provide books to preschool students. I think we saw last year the reaction from students and parents that were overwhelmingly pleased and thought that was a good purchase. So I'm glad to see that in again. And then just because it's a pretty sizable purchase and will mean a big change, could you go over the purchase of the modular units that we're buying and the plans for them?
Sure. So the purchase is basically split up into two categories. We know the cost of the building itself. So the cost of the building is, of course, I lost it right here in front of me, just over $280,000. And then there is the cost for to get the building in operational shape. So hooking up the power, hooking up the sprinkler systems, hooking up the data, communications. Once we get the order to the company, they will then put the modular building in their production schedule, and then they will also have their staff start working on the site plans and getting everything prepared and ready to go for when the building gets delivered, so they can then hook it up, and it's a turnkey operation once that all happens.
Understood. And Dr. Michael, do we have what are the plans for these?
So we have a significant enrollment growth there at Western Heights. I mean, originally, I think we were down 700 students, maybe under 700 students a number of years ago. We're now over 1,000 students, or almost right at 1,000, give or take 2 or 3 children, kind of bubbling around 998 to 1,000, 10 or 15, depending upon the day. So we've had very significantly overcrowded classrooms there with that significant increase in enrollment. So these are to provide additional classroom space. We'll also be adding teachers to reduce class sizes there at Western Heights next year. So this will help provide additional classroom space for Western Heights for the additional teachers. I don't know specifically how Mr. Mariello has decided who he's putting in the portables, but it'll help with this class size and the addition of teachers to help with the increased enrollment at Western Heights.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions?
I have a quick question. This
Go
is
ahead,
Mrs.
Mary.
Dr. Michael, wasn't Western Heights on the schedule to be refurbished or rebuilt or something?
Yes, so Western Heights is one of our schools that was originally built as an open school. It's been back a while now, probably 20 years ago. We did some makeshift walls in there. It really wasn't a renovation. It was more of a, like I say, makeshifting some walls like we've done in a number of our schools, kind of put the lockers in the middle of the wall and build a wall around them, a number of things like that. So we started looking at our middle schools that were all built in the 70s. They're all soon going to be coming up on 50 years old. So we had that on our plan as a school to be replaced. But as the last couple of years, we've been able to see that the money is just not there to match from the local side to match for building replacement. That's when we kind of pushed off our middle school replacements, all of which need to be replaced at this point, particularly all the open schools. We've done a great deal of work at Hicks, and it's actually our oldest school and probably in the best shape. But we could see we wouldn't have enough money coming locally to be able to support the match for a project like Western Heights. That's where we've looked at, unfortunately, pushing the next school out for several years out, 3 or 4 years out, and looking at our 6 schools into 3 school plan, 7 schools into 3 school plan.
And refresh my memory again, what is the state cost versus the state share versus the local match?
I think now going forward, Jeff or Rob Rollins, please correct me. I think it's 79.21. So for every eligible dollar, we put down 21 cents. The state puts down 79 cents.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to the vote.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. If the locals do not come up with the 21 cents, what happens to the 79 cents?
Well, the state has a single pot of money. Now, based on House Bill 1, if that's approved and passed, that pot's going to grow substantially. But what happens is when we don't match all that the state would be willing to give us, that money gets redistributed to other counties that do have the local match. So in essence, Washington County taxpayer dollars go to another county when it could have been an opportunity for us to have the money here in Washington County for very much needed projects. So if you don't keep up on these buildings, I think we're a little over 3.5 million square feet, 3.5 million square feet and 1,100 acres. Blacktop concrete, all those types of things. You don't keep up with your infrastructure, much like your house. If you don't do routine repairs, you're going to have a problem someday. And I'm concerned that's where we're headed right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher, for your question. Anyone else have a question? All right, we'll move to the vote. Dr. Bishop, will you please call the roll for the vote?
Mr. Stauffer,
Aye.
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bickford,
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Gesford,
Aye.
Mr. Murray,
Aye,
Ms. Murray, I'm sorry,
that's okay. Aye.
and Mr. Mackley.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I have 6 affirmative votes with the student member concurring. So we have approved the consent agenda for this evening. Thank you. We'll move now to the superintendent's report. Dr. Michael.
Hey, thank you, Mrs. Williams. Quite a few things to report on tonight. I regret some of these we couldn't do in person, but we are going to do the best we can here virtually. So first of all, I want to thank all of our teachers. Our teachers work extremely hard. This is Teacher Appreciation Week. In particular, this is Teacher Appreciation Day. So to our viewing or listening audience out there, I would encourage you, if you haven't thanked a teacher today in some way or this week, I really encourage you to do that. Our teachers deserve our praise, our support throughout the year, but particularly here as we've entered into spring and the distance learning. So congratulations to all of our teachers for Teacher Appreciation Week. Again, a big thank you. I'll thank them on behalf of the board and myself, senior leadership, many administrators, ESP. We do thank our teachers. Charlie, as part of Teacher Appreciation Week, we also recognize our teacher finalists for Teacher of the Year. And Mr. Baer, Ms. Fermi, Ms. Hurley, Ms. Leatherman, Ms. McDonald. We had here at the Board of Education last Friday, we did a kind of a virtual Teacher of the Year presentation. And Ms. Hurley was our Teacher of the Year for Washington County. Each of the teachers received a $1,000 check. And on top of that, Ms. Hurley received a $5,000 check to use for her classroom, for her media area. Ms. Hurley is currently media specialist at Springfield, and she'll, in the fall, be a media specialist at Boonesboro Middle School. So lots of opportunities there. I think she will try to help out maybe both schools a little bit, but that's a decision that's left up to her. But we congratulate Ms. Hurley. All of our finalists would have been excellent choices to represent all of our teachers in the county. But I'm very proud of Ms. Hurley. I know she'll make Washington County proud. And I hope all of the teachers can appreciate her being Teacher of the Year. And she certainly recognized she's representing almost 1,800 outstanding teachers here in Washington County. At this point, I'd like to call on Dr. Bishop to read a proclamation for Teacher Appreciation Week. So Dr. Bishop, if you'd take the floor there for me, please.
Yes, the Washington County Board of Education proclamation, whereas teachers make public schools great, and whereas teachers work to open students' minds to ideas, knowledge, and dreams, and whereas teachers keep American democracy alive by laying the foundation for good citizenship, and whereas teachers fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors, and whereas teachers continue to influence us long after our school days are only memories, therefore be it proclaimed that May 4th through May 8th, 2020 is observed by Washington County Public Schools as National Teacher Appreciation Week in recognition of the essential role teachers have in our schools, community, and in our society, presented this 5th day of May, 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. And again, a big thank you to all of our teachers here in Washington County Public Schools. We do greatly appreciate you. And again, thank you to our Teacher of the Year finalists, and also a big congratulations to Christine Hurley, our Teacher of the Year for the upcoming 2020-2021 school year. At this time, I'd like to also bring attention to recognition of National School Nurse Day. So National School Nurse Day is tomorrow. We thank all of our nurses for the big role they play as a member of our staff and member of our family at each of our schools. Some of our nurses are one-on-one nurses that Washington County Public Schools employs directly to work with individual students. And the majority of our nurses are part of our nurse health staff. They actually work directly for Emeritus under a contract we have with them. But nonetheless, we appreciate part of our family, and we greatly appreciate them. And we're certainly going to recognize them as part of our National School Nurse Day. So at this point, I'd like to call on Dr. Pugh, if she would read a proclamation that'll recognize all of our nurses for National School Nurse Day, which is tomorrow.
Washington County Board of Education proclamation. Whereas school nurses provide health services and health education in each of our schools, whereas school nurses promote optimal health and safety among our students to support academic achievement, and whereas school nurses act as a liaison to the school community, families, and healthcare providers on behalf of children's health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes for our nation's children, and therefore be it proclaimed that May 6, 2020 is observed by Washington County Public Schools as National School Nurse Day in recognition of the integral role school nurses have in student wellness and success, presented this 5th day of May 2020.
Thank you, Dr. Pugh. And again, thank you to all of our school nurses for the great job that they do. I know many of our Emeritus nurses, I think I saw something in the paper the other day about many of the Emeritus staff have been redeployed to other positions. And I think that's true of many of our school nurses at this point. So we wish them well, and we appreciate all that they're doing to help support our community. So we hope that they remain safe as well. And we thank them for their service here to the community. And again, hopefully we'll all be back together in school soon and we can appreciate them again. At this point, I'd like to move on to recognition of our 2020 Geography Bee winners. So Kate Long is our middle school social studies content specialist. And I'm going to ask Ms. Long if she would recognize our elementary and middle school first place winners at each of our local schools. So Ms. Long.
Good evening, and thank you, President Williams, members of the board, and Dr. Michael. It's my pleasure this evening to recognize the academic achievements of some of our finest. In Washington County, students in grades 4 through 8 participate in the National Geographic Bee, During this competition, they answer a myriad of questions on both the physical and human geography of the world. Tonight, we'll recognize the first place winner for each of our elementary and middle schools, several of whom qualified to advance to the now canceled state competition. Regardless of this hiccup or the cancellation of the National Bee, I couldn't be prouder to recognize these students, their hard work, and the support of their families and teachers. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to recognize the 2020 Washington County Public Schools First Place School Geography Bee champions. From Bester Elementary, we have Santiago Quinteros. From Boonesboro Elementary, Katie McLean. From Cascade Elementary, Luke Glessner. From Clear Spring Elementary, Layla Barr. From Eastern Elementary, Tenley Yost. From Emma K. Daub Elementary, Anna Ramanan. From Fountain Rock Elementary, Caleb Falders. From Fountaindale Elementary, Sadie Morton. From Greenbrier Elementary, Landon May. From Hancock Elementary, Brody Morris. Hickory Elementary, Evelyn Wise. Jonathan Hager Elementary, Evan Anderson. From Lincolnshire Elementary, we have Ethan Pagan. From Mogginsville Elementary, Jeshua Diaz. From Old Forge Elementary, Noah Higby. From Pangbourne Elementary, Carter Solis Higby. From Paramount Elementary, Arnav Bantu. From Pleasant Valley Elementary, Lakin LaRue. From Potomac Heights Elementary, Matthew Cousins. From Rockland Wood Elementary, Joel Perez Ulizar. From Salem Avenue Elementary, Arabella Alegre. From Sharpsburg Elementary, Barrett Shoemaker. From Smithsburg Elementary, Haley Doyle. And Williamsport Elementary, Graham Otvos. Our middle school first place winners. From Boonesboro Middle School, Basil Shalaby. From Clear
Have we lost Miss Long?
Spring, Crampton. From Era.
Okay, I think Miss Long is on there somewhere. I just don't know if we can hear her or not. Can anybody else hear her?
No.
Okay. Peter, you're an expert at reading names. Would you like to finish the rest of our list? Can you see them?
Sure. I'll start with, I think we got up to, I'll just do this page. Basil Shalaby from Boonesboro Middle, 7th grade. Blake Crampton from Clear Spring Middle, 6th grade. Noah Nunberg, E. Russell Hicks Middle, 7th grade. Hayden McCarty, Hancock Middle, 7th grade. Elijah Gross from Northern Middle, 7th grade. Julian Deerdorf, Smithsburg Middle, 6th grade. Thomas Jenkins, Springfield Middle, 6th grade. And Joseph Fox from Western Heights Middle, and he's an 8th grader.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. And thank you, Miss Long. I know you're out there somewhere, but you're probably just having some technical difficulty. We want to congratulate all of our Geography Bee winners, and they've represented their school well. And I wish I could say we wish them well at the state competition and national competition, but we all understand that some of those things just aren't possible right now. But nonetheless, we are very proud of them. At this time, we'd like to recognize our 2020 Carson Scholars. I'm going to ask Helen Huffer, Supervisor of School Counseling, to recognize these students. These students are awarded, they're awarded as Carson Scholar by their academic achievements as well as their humanitarian efforts. So Ms. Huffer.
Good evening, Dr. Michael, Mrs. Williams, and members of the board. The Carson Scholars Fund receives applications from bright, talented, and dedicated students throughout the nation. Applicants are nominated by their school based on their high academic achievement and commitment to their communities. With this honor, these students will receive a $1,000 college scholarship and recognition package. The following WCPS student has been named as this year's Carson Scholar: Elijah Harsh, 5th grade, Cascade Elementary School. The Carson Scholars Fund also has announced that several WCPS students have achieved recognition status for 2020. These previous Carson Scholars have continued to meet the high standards of the Carson Scholars Fund. They show year after year their leadership both in the classroom and in the community. The following WCPS students have achieved this honor: Nicholas Bono, 11th grade, Smithsburg High School; Sarah Freshour, 8th grade, Boonesboro Middle School; Nora Keller, 9th grade, Smithsburg High School; Abigail Kittle, 12th grade, Smithsburg High School; Grace Kittle, 10th grade, Smithsburg High School; Christopher Lobley, 7th grade, Northern Middle School; Adam Metz, 12th grade, Boonesboro High School; Madeline Mills, 6th grade, Northern Middle School; Anna Mooney, 10th grade, Barbara Ingram School for the Arts; Emma Waite, 8th grade, E. Russell Hicks Middle School. Congratulations to these students for achieving this recognition.
Thank you, Ms. Huffer. And again, my congratulations to all of our 2020 Carson Scholars. We're very, very proud of your accomplishments so far in your school career. At this point, I have a couple other recognitions that I'd like to share. Ashley Vasic, one of our social studies teachers at Boonesboro High School, has been recognized as an American Civics Education Teacher Award. We're very proud of Ashley. She's a true advocate and champion of understanding the Constitution and multiple levels of government and public policy. She's also our We the People advisor for Boonesboro High School, which I think just won their 10th year in a row of championships that recognized for Washington County and for the state of Maryland. So we're very, very proud of Ashley and this accomplishment, and just wanted to congratulate her tonight. I wish we could have her there in person to be recognized, but I just want to bring that to the board's attention and to the public's attention. Also received word that Rachel Daly, one of our Spanish teachers over at Williamsport High School, I've had the pleasure of being in her class a number of times. You have to go in order for me to speak, they had to flip the little sign over that says you can speak English instead of Spanish. But Rachel's been recognized as a finalist for Maryland Foreign Language Association's Teacher of the Year. So we wish her well, and we're very optimistic that we'll be able to recognize her here in the near future, maybe as being the actual Teacher of the Year for the Maryland Foreign Language Association. I do just want to share another couple announcements here. Graduation announcement, we sent out a some more, the equivalent of electronic newsletter today that announced that we have several plans for graduation. We have our traditional graduation planned. We have an in-person graduation, which would only be students and not parents or guests. And we have a virtual graduation planned as well. With all the rules right now from the governor's office and from the federal level, the one that we know we can pull off for sure is the virtual graduation. So we're moving forward with that plan. We're hoping that by moving graduation to the week of June 15th through June 19th, various graduations each day, we're hoping that we can either do an in-person graduation with our graduates and live stream that to the public, or it would take a significant amount of changes to the current rules for us to have our traditional graduations, but we're going to hold out hope for that as well. So we're excited that we're able to offer these opportunities to our seniors. We want to honor them the very best we can. Our virtual graduation will have an opportunity for each graduate to share a little bit of a pre-recorded message, 10 or 15 seconds, to say something to mom or dad or their classmates, or a little bit about their school career. It'll have a slideshow that'll have each of the students, their name, their photograph, any honors that they've won. And we'll have the traditional pre-recorded, but it'll be pre-recorded valedictorian, salutatorian, principal, board member comments and speeches. If we do to the in-person graduation, which would be that kind of that middle tier, all of those graduations would be held at North High so that we can live stream them over Channel 99 or over Antietam Cable, and also out onto various social media platforms on the internet. And families hopefully will gather in small numbers, whatever the numbers are allowed at that point, in homes or wherever, to watch those graduations. And students actually would walk the stage. We'd have North High stage decorated with the podium from each school, colors of each school, to make it as realistic as we can to be their homeschool colors. And we would use, small groups, graduating groups of 10 or less, crossing the stage. Unfortunately, families would not be able to be on campus or in attendance unless the rules change substantially. But we've set that up as kind of a middle tier. And again, we'd still like to hold out hope for our traditional graduations, and that's part of why we moved everything back to more. And we will keep families posted and graduates posted on the possibilities of everything. I do want to thank Chris Mackley. He helped me organize. I talked to Chris one day, or texted him, I guess it was one evening, Chris, and asked if you could help pull together the student government leaders and class presidents from across the county from the various schools. And Chris was very successful in pulling that together. Gave me an opportunity. We met twice on Zoom. Gave me an opportunity to hear directly from seniors. I heard from lots of parents in various forms, and I appreciate all their input as well. This is a very, very tough decision to make of how we can honor our graduates the best, but it was very helpful to talk directly to seniors. So, Chris, I don't know if you want to make any comment, Mr. Mackley, about our conversations or thoughts at this point. I know probably at this point you've seen the SMORE in a little bit greater detail, but you knew most of that was coming.
Yeah, I think it was really helpful for us students to understand kind of the complexity of this issue. And I think we were all really grateful for you to take the time to listen to our thoughts as students, to be able to provide us with the best type of ceremony we can get going forward. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, again, parents and seniors will keep you posted. There'll be a lot of information will probably be coming quickly about the virtual graduation. Again, that is hopefully just one of two pieces that we would get to have, but we want to make sure we have that locked in, and we'll need a lot of support from seniors in order to make that a full reality. If we're able to have traditional graduation or the in-person graduation, the virtual graduation will become kind of a memento, and students will get a copy of that to keep, including their personalized messages and their messages from their friends, as well as a copy of the speeches of various people. The last part that I have, Mrs. Williams, is actually a very short video. As the board's aware, in our Innovation Center, over a period, I think, of 19 days, we printed 3D face shields for Meritus Health, as well as we also supplied them to the ARC. We created 6,000 plus face shields at this point, and very, very proud of all the people who were able to donate their time and effort to creating those face shields in our Innovation Center over at Tech High on our 3D printers. And we just wanted to kind of conclude my comments today by just showing that video. Thank you to Aaron and those that worked on making the video a reality as well. So if staff would show that, Mrs. Williams, it'll come back to you then. Thank you. Washington County Public Schools believes in putting students first.
Our students,
our families, our schools
are the fabric of our community.
And when our community is in need,
we step up to help.
That's why we're using our 3D printers, making thousands of face shields to protect our healthcare workers
on the front lines of this pandemic.
These shields are protecting doctors,
nurses, aides, healthcare workers who may be caring for our friends, our family members, and our loved ones.
WCPS shields against COVID-19.
We are doing what we can
to help prevent the spread of the virus,
reaching out to our community
while staying safely apart.
Okay, Mrs. Williams?
Thank you, Dr. Michael.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll have personnel actions. Dr. Bishop?
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, Dr. Michael, and board members. As discussed earlier in closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel actions.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Is there a motion?
This is Mr. Stauffer, move to accept the personnel report.
Thank
Mrs.
you,
Fisher,
Mr.
second.
Mrs. Fisher, you're seconding?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a motion and a second on this afternoon's personnel actions as discussed in closed session. Dr. Bishop, will you please call the roll for the vote?
Mrs. Williams,
Aye.
Mr. Bickford,
Aye.
Mrs. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Guestford,
Aye.
Mrs. Murray,
Aye.
Mr. Ridenhour, and Mr. Stauffer.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Bishop. I have 6 affirmative votes. Motion carries and personnel action has been approved. This time we'll have reports to the board. Our first report is the 2020 through 2029 enrollment forecast with Mr. Prue, Mr. Criswell, and Mr. Rollins presenting.
Good evening, Mrs. Williams, members of the board, Dr. Michael. This is Jeff Prue, Chief Operating Officer. Tonight is our annual report on the enrollment forecast for the next decade. Slightly different this evening. We normally have Ms. Newman from Public Pathways, who was our enrollment consultant with us. She, of course, is in California, but a lot of her numbers, her calculations, her ideology is developed in this report as she consults with our facilities planning and development team. And with that intro, I'll turn the control over to Mr. Criswell, who will walk you through the presentation.
Good evening. So just like we do every year, the enrollment projections were prepared in consultation with input from every school principal at all WCPS facilities. We also took input from WCPS staff, and we looked at local developments. We spoke to all the municipalities within the county. There's a lot of components that go into creating the projections, not just for next year, but for the next 10 years. Our kindergarten through grade 12 enrollment projections were recently submitted to the Maryland Department of Planning for approval. We anticipate receiving an approval letter from MDP because our projections were within 5% of theirs for the next 10 years. We provided the board, and it's also located on board documents for the public to take a look at, a 2-page sheet that indicates the full-time equivalent or pre-kindergarten through grade 12 enrollment for the next 10 years at each WCPS facility. Just kind of a brief overview of the enrollment projections, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Looking for this coming September 2020, we're expecting to be up by about 140 total pre-kindergarten through grade 5 students. Of that 140 that we anticipate to be up, 142 of those seats are going to be additional pre-kindergarten spots that will be above what we saw this past September. So the reality of the K through 5 number, or the kindergarten through 5 number, is going to be a difference of about 2. Looking at our middle schools, we anticipate being down by approximately 15 students. At our high schools, we anticipate being up by around 34. Our net overall growth is we're looking at about 163 total students between this past September and this coming September. And again, 140 of those are pre-kindergarten students that are anticipated based on the additional spots. So in essence, if Deanna was here presenting, she would say Washington County is looking to be pretty flat for next year. We're not expecting any major changes in enrollment. Looking out 10 years from now, in 2029, which is subject to change every year, as she would always say. Again, you know, next year's projections are we anticipate them to be pretty close. Out 10 years, there's a lot of things that could happen. I'm sure if she was here, she would make a joke about the COVID-19 pandemic, whether it'll have an impact on our enrollment in 5 years from now. It remains to be seen. It's something we'll watch. It's certainly going to have an impact on developments and constructions, and it's going to have a ripple effect as we come back and bring you future enrollment projections. But as we stand today, we anticipate being up by about 1,000 elementary students 10 years from now. We anticipate being pretty flat in the middle school level, down 71. At the high school levels, we anticipate a growth of around 127, and it would be a total pre-kindergarten through 12th grade growth of 1,000 students. And again, this was based on birth rates that we've seen, trends that we've seen. There's a lot that's going to be changing in the coming couple years as we kind of sort through some of the newer conditions that we're facing. So again, I'm just kind of going through the numbers that she prepared. I am more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have about specific schools or anything like that, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Criswell. Mr. Prue. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Okay, hearing none, then we'll move to the next item under reports, which would be our board committee reports. Do we have any committees that are wanting to report this evening? Hearing none, then we'll move on to miscellaneous business. We have no future agenda items for me to bring to your attention this evening. However, I would like to remind you of an upcoming training for board members on Saturday, May 16th from 9 until 10:30. Board members will be having equity training. This will be offered by our Supervisor of Equity and Excellence, Allison Smith. So if you don't have that on your calendar, please add it. At this time, we'll move to board member comments. Mr. Mackley, would you like to begin?
I have no comments this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mackley. Mrs. Murray.
Yes, I would just like to say, in honor of Teacher Appreciation Day, I would like to thank all of our teachers and thank them for the hard work that they do every day with our students. And I'd also like to say thank you to the nurses. They provide such a service that we absolutely need, and we thank them so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Murray. Mr. Bickford?
Also a big thank you for Teacher Appreciation Day. Living with a teacher, I see how hard she works, even during this difficult time. And
+13016677770 is now exiting.
And that's pretty much it for comments from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickford. Mr. Stauffer?
Yes, just like to pretty much echo what's already been said. Big thank you and appreciation of all the teachers in the county that work hard and so forth, and the nurses that provide the medical services to our students. It's a great honor, and congratulations to Mrs. Hurley on being recognized as Teacher of the Year.
Thank you, Mr. Stauffer. Mr. Gaspard?
Just echoing the sentiments. So thanks to everybody out there who's working on the front lines, and our teachers, our nurses. Thank you very much. And congratulations to all the finalists for Teacher of the Year and to our winner. Congratulations.
Mrs. Fisher?
Well, obviously, I would like to echo what everyone else has, but I will add to that a thank you to the parents out there who have become teachers rather suddenly, hopefully you're getting a little bit of a eye-open situation and some appreciation for what our teachers do every day. Also, to the students out there, keep up the good work. We're hearing lots of good reports and seeing lots of positive videos and so on. And everybody, just be well.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. I would just like to echo the sentiments of my colleagues and to express my appreciation for teachers who at a time that is challenging and stressful and certainly overwhelming at times, they display such positivity, patience, and dedication. I'm just so very proud and very thankful for the wonderful teachers that we have in Washington County. That's all I have on my agenda. Have I missed anything, colleagues?
No, I don't think so.
Dr. Michael, would you have anything that you would like to say before we adjourn?
I think I had a long list today, and I'm very, very pleased and proud of all the people we recognize, both staff and students, and wish everybody well again, particular teachers during Teacher Appreciation Week for all their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. And with that, we'll adjourn for this evening.